or can we? How can we create a culture of inclusion in our workplace? And that's both in terms of the executive leadership and the boards within our organisations and the responsibilities we have to create this change.
I think there's been a lot written about allyship. I think if you look at LGBT work, there's been a lot there on allyship. And for me, I think there's a real simple way of looking at it. I've been running for about 10 years, not particularly well, but I go running. And I've kind of internalised and got used to the crap you get when you go out for a run and the catcalling and stuff. And I went for a run with a male friend of mine about a year ago. And we got to the end of it and he was going, that was awful. That was the worst run I've ever done. So the way people were looking at you, the way men were looking at you, he stopped to tie up his shoelace at some point and I ran on ahead and I got the usual catcalls. And he couldn't believe it. He was absolutely incredulous. Now for me, there were two things that were really important. Number one, he noticed what happened. He saw it. A light bulb went on and he recognised that although I might have internalised it and got used to it, he called it out. And secondly, it meant I could relax a bit because he was calling it out. So what does this mean for us in this sense of allyship? And I think for us as white allies, it means far more than trotting out some empty corporate statements after the murder of George Floyd. It means really, really stepping up and taking action.
And I think it's about the culture that you create. And therefore, I think it's quite hard if you're within a culture and you see poor behaviour, bad behaviour, and you feel you can't challenge it. And I think that means that you have to start a conversation about, well, what sort of culture do we want as an organisation? And we as an exec have had that conversation, and then it's about holding people to account. It's about having zero tolerance to any kind of discrimination or bullying within the organisation. It's about monitoring those statistics. It's about looking at, how many grievances have you currently got? It's about running engagement surveys that are anonymous so that you get the feedback if people don't feel confident about speaking up. It's about looking for insight and data that give you the clues about what's really going on. And I've got to say our RISE network are fantastic.
So the first thing I would say is that if you're going to be a good ally, the first thing not to do is to stereotype all those people who come up under that very broad catch-all, which almost all policies that I've ever seen do. They talk about BAME, BAME, BAME the whole time. And there's another wonderful organisation started at the end of last year, which is called #BAMEover. And they said, there was a guy called Ozzy Clark-Binns who said at their launch conference, when we look at the word like BAME, to me it seeks to solve a problem that doesn't actually exist. In essence, it's the need to characterise everyone in opposition to whiteness. We are human beings. We should define ourselves in the affirmative of who we are and who we like to define ourselves and how we like to define ourselves, not as a negative or lacking as something in relation to whiteness. So my first point would be that being a good ally involves understanding the difference between group discrimination and how we tackle that when the group experiences it, and then not stereotyping people, not lumping people together, but seeing people in terms of their own individual talents and ambitions. So that's my first point, is that don't lump people together. Somebody said to me the other day, are you LGBT? And I said, well, you can't be all of them. Don't bung us into acronyms, we don't fit.